Hello, welcome to Kitchen Basics 101, where I teach you the bare bone basics as if you've never cooked a day in your life from the perspective of a mom. Ask, I deliver. We're going to do a roasted tomato soup. Super simple. Obviously, there's 100 million variations that you could make to this recipe, and one of them that I love is adding boursin cheese, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to make our basic roasted tomato soup. All the kids went to the pool and got a bath, which is great. And then you don't really have to, but I find it makes it easier, is to just whack up the tomatoes a little bit. I don't even usually take this little stem piece off because I don't really think you even need to. And I'm just going to quarter them. I'm using Roma tomatoes. I just find they have a little bit less moisture, a little bit more concentrated flavor. But honestly, if you've got leftover tomatoes at your house, just use whatever you got that's hanging around, right? Just use any tomato. It really doesn't matter. I have a couple of these little, I think they're called Capri, or if you have the grape tomatoes. The only thing I find with the little tomatoes, you get a more concentrated tomato flavor, but you have more skin than flesh. So sometimes the skin won't blend up into a nice smooth soup. So that would be the only thing if you use a ton of just those grape tomatoes, which are delicious and amazing. So I'm basically just quartering them up. We're going to roast them in a roasting pan. I've got the oven set to 400 degrees. I'm getting it warmed up and ready to rock and roll. The only caveat is you will need a little bit of specialized equipment, because you're either going to need a immersion blender, a regular blender, or maybe you could just mash it up with a really great masher. But for me, I'm going to use a blender, and I'm going to blend. I think I'm using 8 Roma tomatoes here and a handful of those Capri tomatoes. More tomatoes, more soup, right? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect really the recipe much. The only thing I would be careful of is if you do way more than I'm doing right now. So if you do double this recipe, which you totally could, is you're probably going to want to use a little more onion and a little more pepper and a little more seasoning and a little more garlic and all that stuff, right? You're going to need more to flavor. Here's something that I add to mine that probably not everybody adds to theirs, but you'll see a lot of people will use paprika, which is just a red pepper. I just love to add a roasted red pepper here. I think it gives great flavor. I think it adds just a subtle little bit of sweetness to it. So I'm just going to leave them in big pieces because we're roasting it up. But I'm going to add a red pepper to the mix. Now we want to take the ribs and seeds out. So I have my trash bowl here next to me, which is the bowl I use to rinse all my stuff off. You don't get every seed, it's fine. It's not gonna hurt anybody, okay? These bulbs of garlic are pretty small, so I might end up adding 2. And I'm on the fence. I don't really like to squeeze them out, so I think I'm just going to actually put the garlic itself. You guys know I don't love onion, but onion does add a great sweetness to this. So I'm just gonna, this thing is huge, so I'm just gonna do half of this onion, because I think the whole onion would probably be overwhelming, because you wanna add some sweetness, but this is an onion soup, right? This is tomato soup. You can completely leave it this big, or you can quarter it. Look at this gorgeous sheet pan, right? We've just got our tomatoes and our pepper and our onions. We have a little bit of garlic over here in the corner that you can't see because my sheet pan's so big. Now we're gonna do olive oil. If you don't love olive oil, you can use any other kind of oil that you want. Olive oil gives great flavor, but you could also use a neutral oil if you don't like olive oil, avocado oil. Make sure you've got enough to coat. And then we're gonna do some salt, of course. A little bit of salt, like a teaspoon, and a teaspoon of pepper. If you're a basil girl, you could use fresh basil here. If you're a thyme girl, which is me, I'm more of a thyme girl, you can use fresh thyme here. You can make your life easy and do just some Italian seasoning here, which is what I'm going to do to start. Just a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Gorgeous. And then if you like, not spicy, but just a little hint of spice, tiny hint of spice, I'm gonna put some crushed red pepper, okay? If you don't like spicy, don't do this, right? If you just don't want it to have any spice, don't do this. If you are gonna do it, probably like half a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon. It's pretty powerful stuff, okay? Not everyone does this, but for me, I like to toss and coat. I like everybody to get good coverage. So I do a little toss and coat to make sure everyone's got olive oil. Be gentle. Tomatoes are a little bit, you know, delicate. So I do a little toss and coat, get everybody covered in the beautiful seasonings. This is such an easy soup. So easy. It can be vegan. It can be dairy free. Okay. It's up to you. We're 100% optional, but I have a little bit of fresh thyme just because I happen to go to the store to make this recipe for you specifically. So I have a little fresh thyme. This is definitely not necessary, okay? You can, it's beautiful like it is. But if you want, you can put a couple sprigs of fresh thyme on here. It'll be so fragrant. It'll be so lovely. It'll be so yummy. Pop this into a 400-degree oven until it looks roasty toasty. I'll check it after 20 minutes. You want everything to get soft. You want everything to get brown. The longer you cook this, the more caramelized that it gets, the more intense the tomato flavor gets, the sweeter that everything gets, the less water that's there. So take your time and give it a good roast. I ended up doing 35 minutes to get it where I wanted it to look. She's steamy. She's gorgeous. But like, see how they're starting to get like jammy and just concentrated and delicious? That's what we're looking for, okay? So now we got the Vitamix. I'm gonna put all of everything on here into the Vitamix, except for I'm not going to put the thyme. So I'm going to set the thyme to the side. It's added its beautiful fragrance and flavor. I'm going to set it to the side. I almost said to the side. And I'm just going to put in the onions and the garlic and the peppers and the tomatoes. Squeezed out the roasted garlic. I know people like to watch it, but I think it's so gross. So I squeezed it out off camera. Add that in. Then absolutely as careful as possible, I poured all the juice off into the top here, okay? Now, if this won't blend up for you, you can add a little veggie stock or chicken stock, but I'm going to try it without. You always have to be super careful blending up hot liquids because it can like explode out of there. So the first thing that we have to do is taste it for seasoning. Oh my God. Delicious. Needs a little salt. Just a smidge more salt. I'm going to give it another blend. If you wanted to, you could put heavy cream. You could put coconut cream, but you don't have to. Oh, so gorgeous. I can't. I'll show you the consistency is just like velvety, incredible. I did not add any stock to this. Now you could add chicken stock. You could add heavy cream if you wanted this to be creamy. But the real test, right, is to dip our grilled cheese in it. That was the whole point. Oh, it's really hot. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Delicious. A little teeny bit spicy from the red pepper, but just delicious, bright. And this creamy texture just comes from blending it up. No cream. This is totally vegan the way it is. 10 out of 10 recommend.